So, welcome back once again to Third Age Reforged, and a few things just before we get started here. There will be the timestamp for the battle starting below if you don't care about all of this ancillary stuff, but I do think that this is worth listening to because the ModDB 2017 Mod of the Year Awards finished, and Third Age Reforged finished 4th out of, I think, a possible 13,000. So I'm sure the developers are extremely happy with that, and this isn't even the full version of the mod, so maybe next year they can shoot for an even higher space. Maybe even try and go for the #1 spot. Who knows? But yes, that's very good to see because they have put a lot of work in over the past year, and they do deserve to be. Well, they do deserve some recognition for that, I think. The other thing is the only thing I will be showing from now up until the new patch releases are these sort of more custom maps that I have been showing. So I won't be trying to sort of add in any more than that if I'm sort of running low on custom scenario maps, mainly because I feel like I'm repeating myself far too much in sort of more standard maps from here, and there are people better at commentating on battle replays than I am. So I think that what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be showing off these custom maps that people have worked on, because then there is something new that I can say. I'm still going to be repeating myself in terms of how the units match up against one another throughout these sort of more custom scenario maps, but I do want to show off people's hard work before the new patch, because they will need to change these obviously when the new unit balancing comes in. But yeah, I just feel as though that I'm starting to really burn out on the current patch, and I want to be enthusiastic when the new patch drops, because when the new patch drops I might even be able to get a video out every day, and that's what I want to be sort of prepared for, so to speak. And I don't want to sort of have the fatigue of the current patch sort of carry over into this one. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So the videos will likely be a little bit further apart from here, like until the new patch comes out anyway, which is likely to be fairly soon anyway, to be fair. But yes, this is only custom scenario maps from now until the new patch. So if you are planning on sending me battle replays, if it's not on a custom scenario map, I wouldn't show it. So it's not that I don't appreciate it, it's just that I'm starting to burn out pretty hardcore on the current patch, to be honest with you. I've mentioned in the past that the metagame of the current patch, outside of these custom scenario maps where there's sort of a sort of more scripted way of doing things, I'm not a fan of it at all. So that's one of the reasons why I'm just sort of waiting until the new patch comes out. But yes, we shall have a look at this map, and this map is called Defend the Border Farms. I think this one is made by Escal Nordia, or Escal Nordia? Is it? That's his name, isn't it? Yes. And he has one of the attacking armies. This is a 5v3 as well, and 26,000 frames is actually not that much for a 5v3. So this is likely to have, there's going to be no messing around. They're going to attack very quickly, which I'm a big fan of, it seems. So he's got a Mordor army, and he's got a full complement of Morannon units, it seems. So he's got Morannon Uruks and Morannon Maulers. I would hope that he's probably the most elite army, because otherwise the three armies really don't stand much of a chance against like full stacks of Morannon units, even if they've got full stacks of elites, to be honest. Numbers do make a difference, and then back here he's got a large complement of elites as well. So he's got some Númenórean Shield Guard, he's got some Sauron's Will as well, and then he's got some Morgul Chosen, and then back here he's got the Temple Inquisitors, some Uruk Bodyguard, the Olag High, and more Shield Guard. So I really hope that as I go through the attacking armies they aren't as good as his army, because this is an extremely elite army. He's got Morannon bows as well, which are a very efficient sort of mainline archer unit. Moving on to the second of the attacking armies over here, we have Pasternak, and indeed he has got some Orc Raiders. So Orc Raiders, of course, very low tier infantry, but at the front he has got a lot of Uruks as well. And then moving along we have more Uruks, Uruk Archers as well. Sort of that's going to be sort of slightly less elite, it seems, but they still have quite a lot of Uruks, which are not a bad unit, honestly. Like, they aren't quite as good as I would say in Vanilla, where they were really efficient, but in... Oh, he's still got some elites though. He's got some Númenórean Shield Guard, he's got Uruk Bodyguard, Morgul Chosen, more Orc Raiders, 2 units of Sauron's Will and Temple Inquisitors, so I spoke a bit too soon there. He has got some elite units as well. We shall see. We've got Froggy as well. He's got sort of Morannon units as well, mixed in with Uruks. And then I assumed the sort of the layout of the Mordor armies are going to be relatively similar. We've got a lot of Morannon Uruks over here. We've got more Sauron's Will, some more Morgul Chosen, more Temple Inquisitors, and some lesser Balrogs even. So yeah, the defenders I fear are going to get crushed underfoot, but even so, it'll be interesting to see how the map works. And we can see Tundra's Fox over here also playing as Mordor, going to be very similar setup, I imagine. Morannon units, lots of Morannon units, and then a big elite core, which is how Mordor should be played in a 1v1, but in this sort of situation I can't help but feel as though they should have eased off a little bit on the elite units. Morgul Chosen, Olag High. I can already tell that the comments are going to be that the attackers should have had less elites. I know this. We also have Isengard, however, Bobo 16k, and he's got some Uruk-hai infantry back here. He's also got some Uruk-hai crossbowmen, Uruk-hai pikemen, as you would expect from Isengard, and he's also got Nazkai, and he's also got some trolls of the White Hand, a couple of units of berserkers as well, and some guards of the Orthanc. So yeah, this is obviously, I'm not sure what the rules are regarding the two armies that start behind, but I think that the Isengard army will sort of be deployed a little later. Even if it isn't, however, this Gondorian force that starts in the farms will be here. So obviously the encampment up on the hill is to protect the squishy farms that lie behind it. So we have literally Horrible playing as Gondor. He's got some Lasarnak nobles here, some good shock units. More Lasarnak nobles, a lot of Lasarnak nobles actually, so he's got a lot of armour piercing. That'll be very useful against Isengard actually. And he's got some Citadel Guard over here as well. More Lasarnak nobles, so there's a lot of axemen, which a lot of armour piercing is not something you often expect from Gondor. You also have a lot of Gondor infantry over here, just to sort of make up the main line over here. Citadel Guardsmen as well. He's also got some Sons of Argonath, as you would expect. Some Fountain Guard, some Guards of Osgiliath, Veterans of Osgiliath, Citadel Bodyguard. More Veterans, some Shielded Fountain Guard, and some Wardens of the White Tower. So a very elite Gondor army, with a lot of armour piercing as well. Not something you often see. Up here on the hill, you have Enxfit playing as Umbar. Not often an alliance you see either, Gondor and Umbar. But we have some Abrazanim Nadu Tariq. These guys, of course, relatively low base attack stats, but they are AP and they are very tough to kill with their multiple HP. We also have some Corsairs, Fencers, very vulnerable to arrow firing, considering the amount of archers that the attackers have. They're probably going to target these guys down very, very quickly. But having said that, they are very lethal when they get into melee. One of the most surprisingly strong units, I would say, despite the fact they are multiple HP and very expensive. People don't often expect how powerful they really are, mainly because of the look of the unit. They're very drab, and people don't often expect them to do a lot of damage, I don't think. We have the Abrazanim Narduzagar. These guys, of course, not AP, but still very, very skillful, still very capable units. We also have the Naru Naaru Royal Archers. These guys might be where the general is, but the Naru Naaru, of course, definitely Umbar's best ranged unit, other than probably the Blackguards. The Blackguards, personal favourite of mine. They can be very, very effective. We've got two units of Balaguer footmen out here in the front. They're going to need to be reinforced very, very quickly, because otherwise Tundra's Fox is just going to blast through two units of spearmen very, very quickly with all of those numbers that he has available to him. We've also got some Corsair warriors here at the front. They're not going to do too great against the Moran on Uruks, to be honest with you. We've got more Nardubawib, or Nardubawib, the archer variant. We've got more Balaguer footmen. I can't help but feel as though this Umbar unit is a little light on the quality that is required to really stave off this attack. We've got two units of Castamir's Chosen, another unit of Corsair warriors, more Narduzagar, and then we've got some Naru Naaru Royal Guard, and one unit of Harbingers as well. I don't know, I think that some of these lower tier units, like Corsair warriors, get pasted by Moran on Uruks, simply because there aren't enough of them to hold back the tide. And finally we have Master Blaster playing as Dol Amroth. He's got some Dol Amroth men-at-arms, he's got some Tirithea marksmen as well. The Etalond Halberdiers will perform very well, provided they're able to sort of avoid the skirmish fire. We have the Tarnastian Guard. These guys, honestly, not too fantastic. You know, it's much... Usually I prefer to bring the Dol Amroth men-at-arms. You know, these guys as spearmen are not exactly brilliant, but, you know, it is a scenario, so you have to sort of play with the hand you're dealt. We have some dismounted Swan Knights. Again, a little bit disappointing, this unit, in terms of how it performs relative to its peers, but it will still do a decent job with its multiple HP. We've got some Dol Amroth men-at-arms as well over here. We have some Talon Knights. We have some Haven Guard, of course, the two poster boys of the Dol Amroth army. We have some Tirithea Wardens and some Etalond Halberdiers here. More men-at-arms and Swan Knights. More men-at-arms. Men-at-arms are going to get squashed by the Orc elites, however. We've got some Belfast Marines, so there are some Javelins. Then over here we have a large force, sort of trying to stop the most elite Mordor army. We've got some Tarnastian Guard, Halberdiers, Tirithea Wardens, some Marksmen, and some more men-at-arms, and some more Swan Knights. So, without further ado, let us begin. There is going to be a bit of a frame rate sort of juddering as the full complements of the Mordor armies are going to start moving forwards. So you can see that there are sort of multiple ways up onto the hill, so it's going to be a case of there are many choke points that the defenders need to defend. And because of the amount of elites in the Mordor armies, I'm going to assume that they're just going to blast through these choke points relatively easily, simply because the defenders have got to spread themselves out, otherwise the attackers are just going to advance up a choke point where there is no defences. And this is of course going to mean that, you know, they're not going to be able to defend every choke point with the gusto that is required to hold off some of these Mordor elites. And I believe that the idea would be that Gondor would come in to reinforce them, but of course the presence of that entire Isengard army kind of prevents that entirely. But we shall see how this plays out. The balance of power is, you know, it's not hugely out of sync, but there is still definitely a sort of tilt in favour of the attackers. See these Tirithea marksmen are sort of moving forward, going to get ready to try and shoot down on some of these units. Probably definitely best to go for the heavy maulers. They have no shields. They're going to be much more vulnerable to the arrow fire than the standard Urks, who do have shields. You can see that the two armies towards the back are still not moving, so, you know, obviously there are rules attributed to this scenario. Meanwhile, if we look forward over here, you can see it's just going to be a case of Mordor using their numbers to just sort of try and smash through. Against Umbar, I think they'll have a great deal of success. The Belagir Footman and the Corsair Warriors, not the ideal units to be going up against the Orcs, to be fair. The Corsair Warriors in particular are kind of a very disappointing unit for their class. You can see up here that the Mordor Morannon Halberds are also coming forward, so definitely these Corsair Warriors are not going to be heavy duty enough to take them on, even with the armour upgrade that they have been supplied with. There's also there's quite a lot of halberdiers moving up. There's also some Uruks moving up behind them, so that's good. Send up the armour-piercing halberds first, and then send up a much more survivable unit in behind them to sort of really reinforce your first attack, make it so that it won't fall apart. Although, to be fair, you could probably just blast through these Corsair Warriors without too many issues. Meanwhile, let's go and have a look over here. These heavy maulers going to come up. There's also the Olag High are moving forward pretty quickly as well. So Tundra's Fox definitely not hanging around, and I like that, because really there's very little the defenders are going to be able to do to stop the brute force with which you can attack. And there go the heavy maulers. The heavy maulers' strength doesn't really lie in the fact they're going to do a lot of damage quickly. It's the fact that they're AP, and there are so many of them that they do end up doing a lot of atrocious damage over a long period of time. Definitely a very good shock unit. See that the balance of forces is evenly matched. They're also sending up some Morannon Uruks over here. There is arrow fire trading backwards and forwards. Morannon bows are a very efficient archer unit. And there are the Mordor Morannon Uruks. See that the Corsairs fencers are back here. So the Morannon bows would definitely be well served going after these guys, because the Corsairs fencers do horribly under arrow fire despite their multiple HP. And in fact, if I was Fitz, I would just commit these guys immediately to be as close to the line as possible, so they're not very easy to shoot. Otherwise they are just going to get shot. Oh man, this frame rate. Juicy frame rate from four Mordor armies attacking up narrow choke points. But yeah, we can see here that the Corsair Warriors, they just don't stand a chance. They would sort of charge down to the narrowest part of the choke point to try and hold back the tide. But unfortunately, against this many Mordor Morannon units, they're just not very good. I think even standard Uruks would provide a significant challenge for the Corsair Warriors, let alone the Morannon variants. Oof. Crunchy frame rate. Meanwhile, we can see over here that there is a sort of joint front line over here from Umbar and from Dol Amroth. The Dol Amroth men-at-arms will do much better in this infantry fight than Umbar will, and you can see actually that the line has already been broken. The Uruks are sort of spilling around the flank, and that does mean that the Belagir footmen are going to get overwhelmed. So on all fronts, the defenders are kind of falling apart, as I kind of predicted they would with this, you know, because Mordor can afford to send forward just Uruks and Morannon units as fodder. Which of course means that in the late game, when their elites get committed, it's going to be very messy for the defenders. Because already, like, you would expect the defenders to be doing well off the bat, but they really aren't. And the Uruks and the Morannon units just pouring past the Tarnestean Guard and Edelond Halberdiers. They are going to do quite well over here, though, simply because the Halberdiers are going to be so good against the sort of standard mainline Uruks that Mordor have. And my word, the frame rate is garbage. So many just giant blobs. It's bad enough when there's only one of these blobs, but there's like all across, there's like 5 in total. You can see here that again, the front line where Dol Amroth are holding, because their army composition was much better placed to deal with this kind of attack, they are doing slightly better, but ultimately they will end up paying the price in the long run, because they don't have the manpower to really hold off for a long period of time. I do like the idea behind this map though. So we do have a lot of Escal Nordir's army, again the Mordor Morannon units. This is a very thick line over here though. Master Blasts are definitely stacked up over here to try and stop him. He did have the most elite army, so it is understandable. So he is probably going to hold over here, but everywhere else I would worry for the defenders. I do like this map, but I do think that maybe maybe the focus on the choke points at the front is a little bit too extreme. I think maybe there should be a more of an incentive for the battle to sort of retreat and take place within this encampment, within the choke points and such. Because I feel like otherwise it's a bit of a waste of most of the map. Because as it is, you know, the battle will essentially be won and lost on the outer choke points, as it should have been on Gundabad, but here, unfortunately for the defenders, I just don't think they have the manpower. In particular, the front where Umbar, I don't think they have the... I really don't think they have the stopping power to deal with this Mordor advance. Umbar, of course. As far as factions go in the current patch, they're definitely on the lower end of the spectrum, which hopefully will change, because I do like the style of Umbar. Sort of an infantry-focused faction with heavy armour and a few sort of lightly armoured units with a lot of damage, stuff like the Blackguards and the Fencers. It's a neat concept, but in the current patch, of course, it doesn't really work. Any infantry-focused faction in the current patch kind of falls to bits under too much scrutiny. Gondor is another good example of that. So we have these Mordor Ranonooks. They have actually managed to turn the fight around over here, so another wave from the attackers might be required. My word, this frame rate. And we can actually see that the Castamir's Chosen have been committed over here, so elite units have been committed. There are also Talon Knights that I can see in this mosh pit over here. Númenórean Shield Guard as well, though. So elites have been committed. You can actually see that. I think Gondor are moving up onto the hill. So they're going to be surrounded by Isengard at some point. See these Corsair warriors, they're fighting, they're impetuous. I can only apologise for their frame rate, but some of these scenarios are like this because of the level of choke points that there are on it and huge amount of men that there are involved in the fight. Defeat is a distinct possibility for these Moran Onirics. I believe they're taking javelin fire from somewhere, and yes they are. Of course they're Blackguards. The Blackguards I would say you should definitely save for the Temple Inquisitors, because you've got nothing that can take them on one-to-one in melee. The Haven Guard are probably the closest thing you have, but like, even they are not gonna do too well. Harbingers of Castamir are another good unit. With the help of the Blackguards, both of those two units would beat the Temple Inquisitors quite handily. In fact, if the Blackguards used all their ammunition on the Temple Inquisitors, it might kill them outright. Using it on Moran Onirics, though, is not really the best use of their time. What have we got here? Abrazani Nadu Bawib. Ugh, this frame rate. So we've got some Nadu Tariq as well over here. We've got Fencers, which presumably have fallen back to avoid the arrow fire, because they have taken losses despite being back here. What's going on over here? Yeah, they're taking arrow fire as well. They're in loose. I mean, if this is the situation that you're in, you may as well just commit them forwards. Simply because they will be close enough to the line that they won't really be taking arrow fire. But here, putting them in loose formation in Reforged, I've noticed, doesn't really make a huge amount of difference. I mean, it might against the Orcs because their accuracy is so poor. But again, in most situations against decent archers, loose formation doesn't do anything, really. Like, if you put them in loose formation against the Elves, it doesn't help at all. We do have some Corsair Fencers here on the front line, and it has sort of tilted this fight back in favour of Umbar, which is good to see. There are also sort of exchanging arrow fire with those Morannon bows. I definitely wouldn't be using the Royal Guard's ammunition on the Morannon bows, though. Again, you really need to pick your when you're defending, you really need to pick your targets wisely with your skirmishes. Sometimes you don't have a choice but to sort of engage in a skirmish fight, but in this situation, I would say you really want to be saving your Blackguards and your Royal Guard for something like the Temple Inquisitors, or even something like the Balrogs, in the case of the Corsair Blackguards. See that the Valagir footmen are actually holding relatively well here on this front line. In shield wall, spears will do a decent job, but ultimately the attrition will probably get them in the end. Meanwhile, we can see over here, defeat is almost a certainty for the Corsair Blackguards. It looks like they're trying to push through the attackers, if I can just sort of fight the frame rate and get the camera to turn in the way that I want it to. These Corsair Blackguards are engaged in melee by Moran Onirics. You can see the sheer weight of numbers here. These Corsair warriors are going to be forced out of the way pretty quickly, and I did also notice those Olag High were on their way over here. Where are they? There they are. There's also some Morgul Chosen coming in here to shore up the line. They're not going to be able to get rid of this attack very quickly with them here. Multiple HP spears. The Olag High trying to get in behind him again. If these Corsair Blackguards still have ammunition, that's a real tragedy for the defenders, because those high damage javelins are exactly the sort of thing they need to sort of thin out the numbers of the attackers. And now the you know, with the help of the trolls, the Morannon Orcs are just sort of buckling the line of the Corsair Warriors. Corsair Warriors have held up better than I gave them credit for at the start, to be fair, but they are still going to lose, and this is the sort of situation where now the frame rate is lower than it has ever been, simply because of this huge mass of Orcs and of course the trolls. And as soon as they get through here, they're going to be able to envelop the Corsair Blackguards and destroy them. And as soon as they sort of breach one area, the dominoes will start to fall. Oof. Come on, game. Work with me.
Victory will be ours.
Castamir's chosen, and the Talon Knight's still holding this choke point very well, as you would expect. But again, as soon as the elites of Mordor are committed forward, the attrition they've already taken will probably do them in. These dismounted Swan Knights have come forward to try and help the Eidolon Halberdiers, but again, over here, the sheer weight of numbers of all of these Uruks is just causing havoc. It's going to be bad for the defenders. And over here, ooh. There's more trolls over here. Olag High from Pasternak. Again, over here, the Dol Amroth line is thicker, but they're still taking a lot of attrition casualties, so it's just, again, more Orc Raiders being committed forwards. You can see in the background over there, Morannon Bows being sent forward to Eskel Nordia, sort of sending forward his units. Because it does look like, over here at the very least, Dol Amroth have been victorious, but then again, they did commit a lot of their men over here. I mean, they will be victorious at any rate. If this fight continues in its current vein, there are Haven Guard and all sorts over here. Literally Horrible has arrived with some Lasarnak nobles for reinforcements over here. So at least on one choke point, the defenders are noticeably winning. And Gondor are here, of course. Oh, excuse me. I'm getting a cold. You can actually see over here that the trolls are starting to break through the line. They could be going for the Belfalas Marines. Very soft, squishy javelin unit. So what is going on over here? Because I noticed that a lot of the Gondorian reinforcements have arrived. A lot of these Lasarnak nobles could be very, very useful indeed. And again, Gondor has seen that this choke point was buckling. Corsair Warriors were there only, so he has committed forward a lot of his units. In columns, unfortunately, rather than sort of a nice wide formation. But they do need to come to the aid of these Corsair Blackguards, because they're not going to be able to hold them off for much longer. But ultimately, it's going to be the attrition, and, you know, it would be close if they were only dealing with these, like, sort of 4 armies at the front. Of course, you've got to remember the Isengard force that lurks behind. They've already gotten into the farm, so technically speaking, the objective has already fallen. The innocent farms people have already been butchered by the Uruk Hai. You can see these Corsair fencers and the Lasarnak nobles providing a lot of AP in melee. Mordor, Morannon, and Uruks are not going to like that. The bows have also been committed to melee, but it seems like over here they're not really pressurizing this choke point as much. There are some Uruk bodyguard waiting to move in. There are some Sauron's Will, and there are those Temple Guard back there. So there are elite units, but Tundra's Fox is just waiting for the attrition to take hold a little bit more, and then he'll commit forwards. And again, I think he's waiting again for more moves to be made on other choke points, which is wise. Again, I apologise for the frame rate. I do like this map, though. I feel like if there was more of an incentive for the fight to take place within the encampment for the defenders, I feel like that would be for the best. And I also feel as though the attackers, you know, a bit of a walk in the park for them, to be honest, with all of the elites that they've been afforded. When you're outnumbered by when you have the advantage by 2 armies, you should not have, every army should not have a huge elite corps. 1 at most should. The rest of them should be mostly, to be honest, lower tier units, because you will still cause a lot of damage to the units. Like, it's very, very rare that the 3 defenders will win against the 5 attackers, even when only 1 of the attacking armies is sort of quite strong and elite, like Eskel Nordia is. But in this situation, every one of the attacking armies was afforded a strong elite corps, and I don't really agree with that. I feel like that should be changed. I mean, I'll look very stupid if the defenders end up pulling out a victory here, but I very, very much doubt it. If we have a look at the percentages of kills, the defenders are winning, but only by 3%, of course. And when it gets into the later stages of the battle, when one of these choke points falls and the orcs flood in, that's going to be where things go pretty wrong. We have the Citadel bodyguard back here. Meanwhile, we head towards the back of the settlement, pushing through the terrible frame rate. Looking out over the coast, we can see a very thick Gondorian front line of Fountain Guard and Gondor infantry. Now, Bobo has his crossbows, and Bobo is well within his rights to just sort of sit back and use his crossbows to eviscerate this line, because of course Gondor didn't have anything in terms of ranged units, which means that the Uruk-hai crossbows can just sort of sit back and shoot for days. And there they go. And of course we all know by now that the Uruk-hai crossbows have got ammunition that they're going to be able to chew through this very, very quickly. And of course the Gondor infantry's armour and shields will not help them.
If we continue like this, we will smash the enemy.
The Fountain Guard's HP will help them slightly more, but they'll still fall. So that's going to be like a free unit of Fountain Guard that's got to kill. And that's something else that I would say probably in this scenario. The defenders simply don't have enough skirmishers. If you bring it down to a just pure melee fight, you know, the numbers are going to win in this situation 9 times out of 10. Unless the defenders are able to get a really, really favourable engagement. But across 5 choke points, they're not going to be able to get that. You can see that these guards of Osgiliath are moving forward to try and plug the line. Slowly but surely the frame rate is getting better as more of the orcs and men die. You can see that these Lasarnak nobles, I do like the Lasarnak nobles. I like their style. You can see that these guards of Osgiliath are trying to sort of plug this line. There are some Númenórean shield guard from Pasternak being committed forwards. These Moran on Uruk's defeat is a distinct possibility again. It's just the attrition that's going to get the defenders in the end, I feel. What do we have over here? Fountain Guard. And Tirithea Marksman. There's still some trolls. I mean, he's one of only 3 left. You can see that more trolls are being sort of just pushed through the line over here. And now that Escal Nordia's sort of elite forces have arrived, you can see that the Dol Amroth front line is starting to fall apart. And again, I'm sorry that I haven't managed to get many close-ups in this battle, but the frame rate would tank even more than it already is. You can see these Belfast Marines obviously don't really stand much of a chance against trolls in melee, especially not the heavily armoured Olag High. It's like whack-a-mole, only with people. Númenórean Shield Guard again. The Númenórean Shield Guard are kind of underwhelming, but their hit points are going to make it so that this front line holds. You can see that over here is where Mordor are really starting to push through. Over here, the Sarnak nobles mean that the defenders are still sort of putting up a decent fight, but now Sauron's Will moving forward, Morgul Chosen, 2 units of Morgul Chosen, so that's a lot of hit points that are coming in, and these Tirithea Marksmen are not going to be sufficient to deal, well, to do the job that they've been given. There's also the Temple Inquisitors moving forward, so yeah.
Victory will be ours.
Temple Inquisitors, too strong. Ooh, we got trolls. The trolls of the White Hand have managed to sort of worm their way around. What are they going to do? Oh yeah, of course Gondor had ranged units. They got veterans of Osgiliath. I'm an idiot. But the trolls of the White Hand are chasing them off now. And the veterans of Osgiliath do not have AP arrows, so they're not going to be able to just sort of kite and shoot the trolls to death. These Royal Archers are coming back to try and do some, lay down some support. They do have AP arrows, I think. Meanwhile, you can see these guards of the Orthanc sort of forming up a nice centre to try and punch through the Gondorian line. And again, they were nicely softened up by the crossbows. The Fountain Guard sort of formation has been buckled. There are pikemen, there are berserkers as well. Berserkers, very good choice against Gondor simply because of their high AP values. And then there are the Renazkai bodyguard. So again, more elite attackers that the defenders are really going to struggle with. And you can see over here, this is where they're going to lose essentially, because Isengard are just going to be able to pour in. The defenders don't have enough men to sort of form an effective front line over here. And this means that Bobo is just going to be able to sort of flank around with several units. There are these Royal Guardsmen over here fighting against Berserkers. Royal Guardsmen are a very good unit, but ultimately they're just going to be overwhelmed by infantry, the Berserkers as well. And of course the Pikes. We have some Abrazanim Nadutarek. These guys are a good choice against Isengard. The AP, the high survivability, means they will probably outlast Berserkers if it was a 1v1. I'm not sure about that, but again, the numbers are just going to, they're just going to be able to overwhelm Umbar's forces over here. We have these Narduzagar as well. Those veterans of Osgiliath are firing into the lines. Against the Berserkers and the Pikes they will do a lot of damage, but ultimately there are simply so many. And again, the Orcs proving that numbers in this sort of situation will win you the battle, but I still think the attackers were given too many elites. We're not even into the last 10,000 frames yet, though. The lag has extended this battle a little bit. There goes Castamere at the hands of Berserkers and Uruk-hai. What's going on over here? We get underneath this tree. Yeah, Isengard have completely buckled this line over here.
The enemy force remains.
Only half the enemy force remains. While if we fight through the bad frame rate, we can see over here that, you know, again, a front line has been formed over here once more with the Harbingers, with the Tirithea Marksmen. I think those are Wardens of the White Tower, are they? No, those are just the Marksmen, the Belfast Marines as well. So they have managed to do very well against Escal Nordir's very elite army by committing their own elites over here. It's everywhere else in the battle where they've kind of paid the price for that. What's going on way over here as we scoot across the encampment? This is another part of the battlefield where they've done quite well up till now. The Temple Inquisitors and the Temple Guard are over here now, though. At least the Temple Inquisitors are, and the Uruk Bodyguard, which ultimately means that this line is going to fall. The Shielded Fountain Guard are a very, very strong defensive unit, but ultimately the Temple... Yeah, there are the Temple Guard. Both of the Temple units, the strong Black Numenorians, are just going to be able to very quickly and efficiently deal with shielded units. And you can see that they are backed up as well by Uruk Bodyguard and Morannon units. So this line is going to fall. Tundra's Fox has picked his moment very, very well. He plays the Orcs a lot, so you know he knows what he's doing at this point. And over here we have these Balrogs getting into the back of the Citadel Guardsmen and the Corsair Blackguards. The Blackguards, they were never surrounded up till now, so they have managed to sort of lay down their very high melee skill. They are a very good all-round unit. Definitely, in my opinion, Umbar's most useful tool in the current meta. But of course we do have, you know, these Balrogs. The only way to really deal with the Blackguards could use their javelins on Balrogs and do a lot of damage to them. But obviously now the Balrogs are in sustained melee. They've managed to sort of recharge the front line, so things are going to be very bad. There are also Sauron's Will in here. There's still a lot of Morannon units. And you can see that the Morannon units, in terms of overall efficiency in this situation, they are very, very good. Which is why most of the time in a scenario like this, I would urge scenario makers to only use like the standard Uruks when the defenders are outnumbered like this, because the Morannon units are so brutally efficient sometimes. And even though they took a lot of losses, ultimately it doesn't matter. They were able to withstand the pressure that the defenders were able to putting them under. Sons of Argonath and Wardens of the White Tower over here. There are some Sauron's Will in here. I'll try and zoom in a little bit more. The Guards of Osgiliath, their formation has been crumpled a little bit. There goes Imrahil. Yeah, there's a lot of Sauron's Will as well. The Sauron's Will also make it so that the Uruks around them aren't going to break as easily. Again, I only saw like 1 or 2 units of Orc Raiders, and in this sort of situation you need to see a lot of Orc Raiders and lower tier Orc units for it to be a competitive scenario. And I'm not really a huge fan of scenarios where there's sort of an intended victor, because it kind of defeats the whole point of playing. You know, obviously if you're the attackers and you're supposed to win, you know, you can, you know, it's easy, it's a cakewalk, whereas what's the sort of incentive for the defenders to even try if it's kind of impossible for them to win? You can see here the veterans of Osgiliath being chased still by these Trolls of the White Hand, who are bloodied, but again, these skirmishes, we can see the Isengard just sort of pouring forwards, and it's going to be on the front with Escal Nordir that they're going to commit themselves, I think, mainly because that's where most of the defenders' elites are. We are now into the final 10,000 frames. The frame rate is easing up a little bit now, so I will be able to zoom in a little bit more on some of these individual encounters. So these Halberdiers, they're not in the ideal formation. They're still doing quite well against these Sauron's Will. Sauron's Will are taking arrow fire though, and they are not the best at taking arrow fire. Veterans of Osgiliath, these Corsair Fencers are also over here. Dual wielding rapiers is kind of... I wonder how that would work in real life. Sort of double the poke. Could always try a dual rapier run of Dark Souls. Over here we have these Uruk archers. Sort of moving in, they're going to be the ones to sort of surround this force over here. Of course they will lose, but just the fact that they're surrounding This battle has been kind of a foregone conclusion ever since the start, but even so, I think the defenders, they did well on certain fronts, but they just didn't have enough men, enough elite soldiers, to really put up a fight on all fronts, because again, their standard units would just be no match for elite forces, and so it has turned out to be, really. And over here we can see that this front line has basically been finished off. There are still some Talon Knights and some Castemirs chosen, but ultimately Trolls, Balrogs, the slow bleed. Here are more lesser Balrogs. Over here the frame rate's still not ideal. You can see that the Corsair Blackguards have been really cut down to size by the lesser Balrogs. And then over here we have the Lasarnak Nobles. Only 30 of them remaining, and 70 Citadel Guardsmen. There's still a lot of Sauron's Will in here as well, along with a lot of sort of more Morannon units. The Bowmen, of course, won't do too great in melee. And then back here, victory seems certain, although to be fair, Umbar and Gondor have put up a really good fight against this Isengard force. The Abruzani Nadu Tariq really doing a lot of heavy lifting against the heavily armoured Isengard forces. There are also some Narduzagar over here, and then backed up by some Gondorian spearmen and infantry. Well, Citadel Guard, of course. And ultimately the Uruk-hai pikemen are just sort of holding them in position at this point. So yeah, the defenders might actually win this over here, question mark. With the Citadel Guard and the Abrazanim, I think they might, but really the main problem is going to be over here, where Isengard are just sort of pouring forward, and they're going to be able to break all of these lines. The Uruk-hai crossbows in particular, I mean, you know, the AP that these guys are going to lay down on the defensive positions that are left. And you can see the blood spray from those veterans of Osgiliath taking several losses in a single volley. Again, the Corsair Fencers are a very good unit, but they aren't particularly durable in the long run, along with these Nadu Bawib, so these Uruk-hai infantrymen that are slowly but surely advance through them. And there goes, is that Isildur or is it Faramir? The Gondorian general. Regardless, we also have this sort of, we have Scots like a sort of surround here, a final last stand of the Wardens of the White Tower and the Sons of the Argonath. We have these more Uruks being committed forwards. It's been a bad day at the office for the defenders. They've just been utterly overwhelmed. And again, I can't really blame them for that. There wasn't really much they could have done. Like, you could argue maybe they could have committed forward less of their elite units over on Escal Nordia's side, but if they did, then his army would have just completely overrun them. Meanwhile, these Atalon Halberdiers defeat the Seam Sun. They're being surrounded by Uruks, Uruk Bodyguard, and Uruk Halberdiers, as well as the last vestiges of these Corsair Fencers. Well, what's going on over here? Yep, the Uruk-hai infantry using their weight. Now then, very choke pointy fight this, and ultimately it wasn't one that the defenders could win. You could ask yourself whether, if they could have sort of retreated back into the settlement, if they could have used the choke points within the encampment and had a sort of tighter formation rather than trying to sort of spread themselves too thin. But I still don't think they would have survived against a lot of these elite units. I mean, the Temple Inquisitors especially, like, they've taken no losses going through what was left of that front line. And over here, the lesser Balrogs still just chewing their way through this force over here. You can see that choke point over here ended in victory for Tundra's Fox. His Temple Inquisitors and his Temple Guard taking virtually no casualties either. Meanwhile, Escal Nordia has also, with the help of Bobo coming around, finally been able to overcome this Dol Amroth defence. The Nazkai Bodyguard and the Temple Inquisitors together. That is quite the frightening force. As individual unit models go, the Nazkai Bodyguard are better, I think, but the Temple Inquisitors have got significantly more men in the unit, which makes them the much better unit overall. But still, the Nazkai Bodyguard. But yes, indeed, the balance of power has very rapidly gone against the defenders, and you can see here that it is very much not close anymore. Only 68% of the attackers killed, 94% of the defenders. You can see that as soon as the line... It was relatively even up until the lines broke, but when the lines broke, that was it. And it was always going to happen with how many avenues of attack the defenders had to hold, with the level of opposition they had to fight. And while we look over here, the final stand of these Wardens of the White Tower, they don't go down easy. There are Temple Inquisitors in here though, there are Berserkers. Brutal. There is still 6,000 frames left as well, which confuses me somewhat. Unless maybe the defenders are going to try and run out the clock, but I mean that would be very unsporting. These Etalon Halberdiers are routing. And over here we have these veterans of Osgiliath with their armour upgrades. A neat looking unit. It's a good... I like the concept of the unit as well, sort of an elite heavy infantry unit that also doubles as a sort of standard mainline bowman. Because as an archer they're not actually that fantastic. Like they're not well, in terms of the current patch anyway, they're not AP. Their missile damage is not huge. But where they really get their... where they really score their points is the fact that they are essentially a heavy infantry unit with 2 HP in melee. But they are just being completely overwhelmed by all of these Uruk-hai. Uruk-hai infantry, one of the better sort of mainline infantry units. Decently well armoured. And they've also got a... They don't have quite as many men in the unit as the other sort of orc units of similar types, but they are more so than the human factions get. And individually they are better than most of the other orc units. While over here the Uruk-hai charging into these other veterans of Osgiliath, swinging their giant morning stars around. And these veterans, they are routing. They have been destroyed. Somebody's admitted defeat. What is going on? These Abrazanim. Citadel Guard are routing, so I think that's the Gondor player that admitted defeat. And there are 5,000 frames left. So we've got these Nadu Tariq. Are they going to try and sort of run around and kite? They won't be able to outrun the trolls. Umbar putting up a last stand. What's going on over here? Dol Amroth men-at-arms, 7 of them. What's going on down here? These routing men. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to come down to like one tiny unit that's left alive. Like those 7 Dol Amroth men-at-arms here. And the attackers just sort of trying to find them. Sort of trying to hide among the dead bodies, because there is a time limit on this map. Not that it ended up playing much of a part. The attackers were always going to use high aggression tactics. Oh, excuse me. And there are the lesser Balrogs, still in good health, still 7 of them alive. And they're going to sort of side charge these Umbar units over here, I think. You can see all of the retreating units. What is that? 1 Nadu Bawib. Oh dear. Balrogs. Here are the Abrazanim. I do like the Abrazanim style with like the masks and the... I don't know what sort of armour you call this, sort of chainmail and... Is it splint mail? Or lamella? Dark lamella armour. Here come the lesser Balrogs with the help of these pikes. It's going to be a very foregone conclusion, this. The veterans of Osgiliath are also being sort of cleaned up. See how long these Narduzagar last. Defeat seems certain. Only a military genius could win this battle. Unless the defenders have got a hidden unit somewhere, which would be maximum cheese, but it's possible. Uruk-hai pikemen. A lot of these units are exhausted, but ultimately it's going to be these lesser Balrogs that finishes off the Narduzagar. Here comes some Uruk-hai as well. More Temple Guard. More Uruk Bodyguard. For the most part, when you have like a 5v3, most of the fodder armies, the Uruk Bodyguard should be the only elite unit they have. Isengard were pretty much the thing that pushed the defenders over the edge when that full force of Uruk-hai attacked from the rear. They simply didn't have enough men to hold down every position, and of course this meant Isengard could rear charge several of the front lines that the defenders were attempting to hold. They probably would have lost those front lines eventually anyway, the defenders, with all of those Mordor elites. 16 Narduzagar left. They're still eager though. They're not looking like breaking anytime soon. Brutal. And the Uruk-hai pikes, of course. Seeing the Uruk-hai pikes push forward in formation is one of the nicer sights in the game, to be honest. There are the Balrogs as well, so that's going to be it. So I think these guys are the last ones. 99%. Right, let's go to. There's only Dol Amroth left. Where is he going? I mean, surely the attackers have noticed at this point. There are Temple Inquisitors on the way. Oh dear. So we're coming into the last 2,000 frames, and I'm pretty sure these are the only dudes left. I mean, we'll soon find out because they're charging in, or maybe they're not because they're going to die very quickly. Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms, probably the best sort of mainline unit, sort of bread and butter, sword and shield. Probably the best one in the game at the moment. It's another thing that gives Dol Amroth a decent amount of frontline strength. Dol Amroth, probably one of the better factions overall, to be honest, considering the cavalry. The only thing they really lack, which kind of does sort of let them down a little bit, is a lot of really strong archers. The Tirithea marksmen are okay. The Nimrodel Rangers are AP, but you can only have one. And of course they're not very good in the skirmish fights because of their lack of armour and HP. So in the current meta, that's why Dol Amroth aren't really like top tier in the same way that, say, Arnor are. Arnor, of course, with both heavy cavalry and extremely strong archers. But Dol Amroth is still very fun, and they do have a lot of style, of course. The Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms are actually holding out relatively well. I mean, they are only facing Morannon bows. I am wondering why these Temple Inquisitors are not simply charging forth and destroying them. Maybe they're giving them like a fighting chance. A few more kills right here at the end. Just before we no, that's just routing units. So yes, indeed, this is the last of them. It's not exactly the most epic last stand ever. A couple of men-at-arms facing off against bowmen. Look at all that blue on the map, look. Certainly one of the more one-sided battles I've shown. But it is a neat custom map, I think, with a bit of tweaking in terms of the rules and particularly in terms of the attacking armies. I feel like this one's got a lot of potential moving forwards. And of course the prevalence of extremely powerful multiple HP elite units I think will be sort of lessened in the next patch anyway. So with the next patch hopefully a lot of these issues will cease to be. Here come the trolls. This one dude is fighting off. I mean he's shaken but he's not like wavering. What a hero. I mean surely at some point the troll is just going to clonk him on the head and be done with it. There's also sort of Morannon Uruks over there, but he's surviving for a remarkably long time. I mean, he's getting stun locked as well, so he's not going to get any more kills. And there he goes. Dead. By a bowman as well, not by a troll in the end. But that is the end. So, looking at these, obviously that's Boba. I'm not sure which of these is which. I would assume that the 2453 would be Tundra's Fox, I would imagine, simply because he had 2 choke points that he was attacking. Dol Amroth getting the most kills, that's not really too surprising considering he was better prepared to deal with it than Umbar. Gondor getting the least amount of kills. Again, that's not surprising because they were almost immediately recharged and shot to death by the Uruk-hai crossbowmen. Let's have a look at the kills. So these are all of the Mordor army kills, so we do get to see most of them. So here at the top, I think this is Esgal-Nordir's army. Sauron's will getting the most kills. Actually, no, Moran on halberds. Not bad for them. Casualties inflicted by this army, 229 by Uruk halberds, 260 by Temple Inquisitors. You can see that the AP very important. 174 by heavy maulers over here. Over here we have 182 by Moran on halberds again. 173 by some standard Moran on Uruks. So yeah, definitely, I think there's some... Obviously there needs to be some tweaks to this scenario naturally, but the map itself has got a lot of potential, I feel. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next, which will probably be another one of these custom scenarios, unless the new patch drops faster than I was anticipating.